Hello, I'm Michael Verney and welcome along to the Indo GAA podcast with thanks to AIB. AIB is at the heart of Gaelic games across both club and county, and in 2025 they're celebrating a decade of sponsoring the All-Ireland Senior Football Championships. With this year's championship shaping up to be one of the most competitive in years, AIB is more excited than ever to bring fans closer to the action. Check out the hashtag #TheToughest for more. Hello and welcome to Indo GAA, where we look back on all the weekend's action. GAA action mostly, but I'm joined by Dick Clerkin and Pat Spillane, and I know Dick has a message in the background there showing his love for everything Rory McIlroy. Dick, I'll start with you. It was one of the most amazing sporting occasions, every high and low that you could possibly experience as a viewer. So God only knows what was going through Rory McIlroy, but he got the result that we all wanted, and he has that coveted green jacket. You've been probably leader of the McIlroy fan club for a long time. You must have got a great buzz out of that.
Honestly, Mike, I'm still emotionally drained from it, and I can't explain this. My wife sort of does look at me at times and just wonder what's going on. Like I'll take you back. In 2019, myself and Dad, went up to the Portrush Open. And I think if you remember the first hole, so we went up early, hadn't been to an Open before. It was a huge event. Obviously, Rory had brought it to Northern Ireland. And we got up early and I got behind the first tee. And I never to this day experienced an event and a moment like it in terms of the build-up and the expectation and the crowd. And if you remember, Rory came out and he had an 8 and basically blew the whole tournament on the first hole. And it was like somebody died. I'd never experienced anything like it. And since that day, I have been just all in on McIlroy. And every major, we've gone and watched him now in the last 3 Opens. We're heading back up to Portrush this year. It was in Royal County Down last year on the 18th with the boys watching him. And all of the highs, the lows just compounded into Sunday evening. I was in Centre Parks with the family. We were watching it, some of the carry on, and I went through, cheering some of the shots. And at one stage, your head was in your hands. It was unbelievable. And, it's I think golfers, non-golfers alike, just got absorbed into it. But at the end of the day, in 50 years' time, this will be looked back as one of the iconic sporting events. This was the Ali, Foreman, Maradona, Mexico, the McGuigan and Loftus Road moment, the Italia 90 of our generation. It was that big and it was that impressive. And yeah, it's a lot of new golf fans this week after Sunday night.
Pat, you double screened by all accounts for definitely for Sunday, but you saw a couple of shots in the Masters, it would be fair to say.
Yeah, I think anyone that knows my lifestyle knows that I watch TV sport all day long. So, and today is about as boring a day as possible. And I've just after finishing watching racing from Newmarket. I don't back a horse at all, but I'll watch every race. And I've just watched the start of the Indian Premier League, and you'd be glad to know the Punjab Kings are playing the Kolkata Knight Riders. So I was glancing at those before coming on. I would say so. I love all sports on TV, and I look at all sports because and try to take something from them, because I see cricket. I love cricket. It can be a boring game, but I like to see the qualities what make people love cricket, and I like that. So I would say the Masters last Sunday night was probably the greatest TV sporting experience I've ever had, because for those 4 plus 5 hours, it took you on a magic carpet ride of drama and excitement and highs and lows, and at the end, better still, a happy ending. It was absolutely brilliant television, and just to balance the books, by the way, because I did watch on Sunday the ladies. The Camogie finals were on, United and Newcastle. I was watching that. I was watching the rugby between Toulon and Toulouse, and in fairness, good old the Gaelic football threw up an absolute turkey of TV viewing, because and that was between Tyrone and Cavan. And I can tell you this, Michael, and I've said it from my column for next Sunday, if there is any neutral in TV land that managed to sit from minute 1 to minute 70 plus and watch that Tyrone Cavan game, oh God save us, those people deserve all Ireland medals. It was a hard watch. So from the highs of Augusta to the lows of Cavan and Tyrone.
Well, Pat, we might as well stay going on that team, because I had the joy and honour of being in Healy Park last Sunday.
Oh, lovely.
What did you reckon, lads? Like, to me, you know, some people were kind of maybe blowing up Tyrone a bit after. I thought Tyrone were in third gear, and it was a dirty petrol third gear kind of job, to be honest with you. Cavan showed a lot of endeavour early doors, weren't able to really get scores on the board. They made a bit of a fight of it thereafter, but it was not really a contest stick really for the large majority. Con Kilpatrick's goal kind of finished it off, whatever bit of a contest it was, but just I definitely would not have been in any way blown away by Tyrone. And they'll need to go up about 5 gears for Armagh.
Yeah, like Cavan have been robbed of sort of, Paddy Lynch up front, who was really an up and coming good footballer, and they really missed that sort of finisher, because they were pushing hard at the end. It was one of those games, a couple of scores and a few goal chances, but yeah, it was like a game that Tyrone sort of won early doors, and they sort of just got locked in third gear for the rest of it, and didn't have to. They could score when they sort of wanted and needed to. Dara Canavan wasn't playing, and very few other players sort of caught the eye. It was one of those games, no different than, say, Dublin v Wicklow, Armagh v Antrim. You're going into it a bit complacent at home. Yeah, they're not any further up the charts. They're not any further down after it. Cavan, I would have thought, that would have brought a wee bit more. Like, they finished strong, but they needed to be sort of getting their nose in front and competing, ball for ball. Because Cavan aren't a bad team. Like, Cavan are competitive. They've been decent in the league, and they pushed Tyrone last year hard in Breffni, if you remember. So I was expecting more from them, and they'd be very disappointed that they let it get away from them, which essentially that it done. So yeah, nothing. I don't think we learned a whole pile against Tyrone. It says they're not going to win All Ireland without a fire in Dara Canavan. That's sort of a given, because he's that sort of marquee player that sets them apart from being an average team almost to being a good or a contenting team.
One thing I would say, Pat, it was as I thinking about it there even just before, and it was the return of the Max, or the somewhat return of the Max. McGeary was at least back in some sort of form, kicked 3 nice points. McCurry was in good form again. McShane was in probably better form than he's been in, but outside of that, we didn't really learn a hell of a lot.
I wouldn't read absolutely anything in it. I will say this, looking at the Tyrone performance in the first half, first couple of minutes, it took them a while. There was no Dara Canavan. So Dara Canavan is the focal point of that attack. They kicked the ball in, he shows for the ball. So without Dara, it took them a while. There was a couple of early kicks that the Cavan defenders defended from the front. But after that, then Tyrone settled down in that first half to play some really, really good attacking football. Heads up, intelligent football. Their shooting efficiency was amazing in that first half. 17 shots at goal. They scored from 14 of them. 82%. That's very impressive. Their kick-out stats were amazing. 89% from kick-outs. They played some lovely football. Some absolutely lovely football. But do I read a whole pile into it? Yes, you're right about McGeary. He looks returning to form. Matt Shane was good, but I wouldn't read anything into it. Honestly, I was looking at the stats from the first half, and I just mentioned there, Tyrone had 17 shots at goal. Cavan in that first half had 7 shots at goal. They scored from 4 of them, all right. But I knew Cavan surprised me in Division 2 that they were actually within a kick of the ball of getting promoted, because I know of a couple of lads who played in challenge games against Cavan before the season started, and they said Cavan were very, very poor. And I was talking about it lately, like Cavan's backroom team that was appointed 2 years ago, and I presume most of them are still in situ, is one of the most professional and one of the most experience, and it's a really top-end backroom team. And I looked at the Cavan team last Sunday, and I didn't see tactics, I didn't see a game plan, I saw no intensity. And the kick-out was a classic example where the goalie kicked the ball out to the same side of the field 7 times in a row, and 7 times in a row they lost the ball. And what was it? Einstein's theory of insanity, that you keep doing the same thing over and over again and you expect a different result. I thought it was bonkers. So there's no serious analysis, forget about it. With 20 minutes to go, our Tyrone were winning by 14 points. Game over, ball burst. This was, Tyrone will be happy. They have a lot of improving to do, and they will need a lot of improving to do when they're playing Armagh. But otherwise, an absolute forgettable game. And one little thing, one little thing I demand of a team, and you start to say, right, when you're in a contest, irrespective of whether it is David playing Goliath or two even teams, you want to let the opposition know they're in a game. And I see in recent times, and the Ulster Championship is no different, that there's no intensity, there's no physicality. Ulster Championship, and Dick will know, was always renowned for its physicality, its hard hitting, in your face, get under the skin of the opposition. And I saw that in Corrigan Park on Saturday, where Antrim got under the skin of Armagh. They hit them, they physically, but geez, Cavan on Sunday, they just didn't lay a glove on Tyrone, not a glove. It was just an armchair ride for Tyrone's players from start to finish, and like I said, a forgettable game. And when the highlights reel is being done at the end of the year for the 2025 season, I can tell you this: there won't be 1 second of that game shown.
Well, I don't think we'll spend another second on it either, to be honest. Just on the game in Corrigan Park that Pat mentioned there, Dick, like it was an occasion. Maybe it's the tighter venue, everything, but as Pat says there, Antrim brought plenty to the table here, and like this was a proper contest. It probably finished as we all thought it might finish, Dick, but they made a right go of it, in fairness.
They did. And if you not to go back on the previous game that Pat very
briefly, please, very briefly.
If you contrast, like one of the reasons Cavan just got blown out, they didn't compete on kickouts. They just conceded the kickout, and that just sets a platform. Whereas the new rules do allow an underdog team to really aggressively compete and get possession in kickouts, because even, God knows, I played against a lot of midfielders that were better than me, standing up the side, and they were taller. But you can get in the new rules now, and you can be aggressive, you can get the ball to the ground, and any team worth their salt can get possession. And Antrim went with that mentality. He said, well, we can compete here. We can get in and use our aggression and use the occasion to try and make it competitive. And when you do that, you'll get scoring opportunities, you'll stay in the game. Now, over 70, 75 minutes, the better team with the deeper panel and the skills will generally last out. But it was great to see them, bring that game, to the final quarter and give the occasion that they fought for. They put their head, like if Antrim had turned up on Saturday afternoon after all the hullabaloo made and just rolled over, like, let's be honest, Cavan largely did against Tyrone, it would have been a very bad look for Antrim football. So they put their head on the block, Jerry McEntee, and they got a performance, which is all you can sort of ask for when you're the underdog, and it was great to see.
Just on that, Pat, did we learn much about Armagh? Like, they obviously showed a fair bit of their strength in depth. In fairness, they were down plenty of frontline players. They do have a decent panel to call on. It's fair to say.
Yeah,
a deep squad.
I think Kieran McGeeney will be happy with it, because he started with, I think, was there only 5 of last year's All-Ireland final team. Their second half performance was very, very impressive. 1 goal and 23 points in the second half. That's serious shooting. Their transition play, as we expect, was fast, was very, very quick. There's no doubt about it, as you just alluded to. They are building a panel. They're building a panel. I like the look of Thomas McCormack, young O'Neill at midfield, Oisin O'Neill that came on brilliant on the freeze. So yeah, I was impressed. I was impressed at stages with Armagh. I would look back at some of the transition play last week. Maybe it's because a lot of the transition play was through the hands, which I'm saying in the new rules, I'm looking for teams who transition like Kerry in the league final with a kicking game. There was a lot of transition. Most of their transition was through the hands. I also thought that killer instinct of going for goals wasn't there. Now, maybe that's because the opposition, they were never going to lose. But the amount of times they punched the ball over the bar where there was a possibility of going for a goal. And you're sort of saying the great teams go for the juggler. And if there's a chance of really destroying a team, they'll rattle 4 or 5 goals. So Armagh didn't do that, but no.
Pat, do you think you should be still allowed to hand pass the ball over the bar?
Well,
no.
No, I would agree with you. Yeah, look, and while we're on the rules, here the 3 of them that have to be got. The 2-point free is absolutely a joke. I don't agree with it. I think it needs to be abolished. 2-point free. The more I see, we've had 2 championship weekends so far. I think the 2-point free is not a proper reward. I think it's an unfair reward. It's a gimme. It's going back to something else. We talked about 2 weeks ago, I think I talked about dissent, the 50-metre penalty for dissent being harsh. I also think the 50-metre penalty for the fella being tackled after winning a kick-out mark is wrong, because what's happening in a lot of cases, is the fellow who wins the match runs into the nearest opposition player, cods the referee, and he suddenly, the ball is brought up 50 metres and there's a tap over free. Andrew Monaghan did it last week against Antrim. Got the ball, ran into the nearest Antrim fella. Barry Cassidy bought the free, moved it up 50 yards and does a tap over free. Now, in fairness, it happened in the Westmeath Kildare game and David Goff didn't bite. So that was number 2. But you know what's another interesting thing? So I don't agree with it. I still think when you see a 2-point reward for a free, particularly with the wind behind you, you start to say, that's a bit too handy. And only a 3-point reward for a goal, which is half there. I still think, I've always maintained, a goal should be worth 4 points. And then there was something that it only dawned on me the last day when somebody was saying in some commentary, the advantage rule now is at the discretion of the referee. And I've just been noticing over the 2 weekends that discretion of the referee is a very generalised definition. Some referees have about 5 seconds. Some referees go up to 20, 25 and 30 seconds. And I think there's a grey area there. And God forbid, wait till an All-Ireland final, that a referee gives a long advantage and the winning score in an All-Ireland final is decided in the 25th second of an advantage rule. So you're right, punch points, 2-point frees, don't agree with them.
Good man. Okay, good man. That was, I think it was a 25-second lag in one of the games for an advantage. And as you say there, you just want it to be consistent because it should not be 5 seconds with one referee and potentially 25 with another. But there was a couple of things highlighted. Even Mickey Hart was not happy about the 2-point arc even after the Offaly game. Now Offaly made use of it in the first half, but they were fairly badly stung by it in the second half.
Can I just say that before Dick comes in? And I noticed some of the managers complaining about the 2-point scoring. There was 35 2-pointers scored in the championship matches last weekend. But I don't see a problem with 2-pointers. What I see, you're encouraging forwards to shoot. You're encouraging players to shoot, to chance the high-risk shot. That was never in the past. But of course, the biggest problem I see why there's so many successful 2-pointers at the moment is that defenders and opposition teams and the team without the ball, they are so obsessed with defending the acts that they're not prepared to come out. If teams are prepared to come out and man-mark the shooter, I think you would see a notable decline in 2-point shots.
And then all of a sudden, Pat, space probably opens inside for more goals because you're drawing them out, whereas there's probably less goals at the minute. Dick, do you want to just come in on any of the rules there, any issues? The hand pass point now is to me it's a real sickener when you're at a game and you see the lads after breaking through and you're just thinking, if he slips left or right, we have a lovely goal here. And I don't know what you do because there are times when you get the ball in around the goals and sometimes the only option is actually to hand pass it over. Colin McShane had a goal chance the other day and he was kind of smothered out and he kind of turned to the side and hand passed it over, and that's okay. But so many times lads are on the front foot and there's a goal chance on and they just pop it over, and I think it's a horrible.
It would have been an easy opportunity with all the sweeping changes to add that one in. You wouldn't have meant too many people fighting to keep it. Listen here, I scored plenty of them in my day. I'm not saying
great for the lads that can't kick.
When it's back off, I scored plenty left and right as well, Verney. But listen, if it's there, you'll take it. But if it's not, you'll be trying to be more creative otherwise. And I think in any sport and any rules, you have to try and incentivize and reward skill and excellence and protect against the other. Like one of the arguments I think was made recently, I think it was by Jim Gavin himself, I could be corrected on this, around not taking away the 2-pointed free, Pat, that you were talking about, was that it will incentivize cynical tackling outside the arc. That if a team's going to sort of say, well, I'll sooner tackle them outside the arc and give them a 1-pointed free as opposed to the opportunity for a 2-pointer from play.
Yeah, he brought up the example at the end of the Division 3 football final when Offaly were winning by 2, and in the Division 4 final when Limerick were winning by 2. Yeah,
I get that, but that's not a good premise for setting rules and incentives for scores. When it comes to scoring, you should be incentivizing skill and rewarding, like, and they have sort of contradicted themselves with stepping back on the four, and the stepping back on the 4-pointer for a goal was a bit of a step back. That we are sort of seeing teams, opting for taking their points, working for a 2-pointer, and maybe not been encouraged to go for goals. And I think any sport, their point system needs to incentivize in every way to take risks and reward it accordingly. And I think we're starting to see a bit of a trend that might not be the case, that we're not being encouraged to go for goals, and that 2-pointers from outside the arc from play or set pieces, especially the ones have been brought up outside I just can't have that. I've spoken at that. Anyway, we're going back down a rules rabbit hole again, but it is going to become an issue in a big game at some stage if it hasn't already. And listen, maybe we'll see how the season goes, but there's a few things, especially when the wind played havoc in a lot of games at the weekend, which we thought that was only a league anomaly, but now it's sort of crept in. Well, this is what you get for playing championship in April when you're still in the throes of spring. So I don't think we're just out the woods on the windy days just yet.
Right. I think it just looks awful. So there's a guy who didn't hand the ball to Phil. He dropped it. He was angry. He was in the mood. He was angry. And suddenly the whole lot are traipsing up 50 metres up the field. The game is delayed for 30 seconds, 40 seconds for a fella to tap over the field, or vice versa. A challenge after a mark, which doesn't appear like an intentional challenge. And again, same story, 30, 35 seconds. Momentum of the game is broken. The flow is broken as everyone traipses up the field for a fella to tap the ball over the bar for 13 metres. I just think it's a very, very harsh penalty, and perhaps 20 metres would be quite sufficient.
Yeah, it actually sucked the momentum out of the Tyrone Cavan game once or twice, and a lot of people were confused about what was going on as well, and it just kind of actually delayed the game, to be honest with you. But we'll have a look into Leinster, lads. Pat, I'll come to you first. Like, before, when we were predicting this game or previewing this game, I did not see 9 points been in the difference of a real top tier Division 1 team and a team that didn't get promoted from Division 4 in Wicklow, but it finished Dublin 221, Wicklow 18 points. Desi Farrell was saying after that the Dubs would have to take a good look at themselves. Conor Callaghan aside, who was obviously brilliant and ended up with 1-7. Is this a little bit of a worry, Pat, at all for the Dubs? They usually lay waste to this type of opposition, and they have traditionally down the guts of the last 13, 14 years.
Well, what's very interesting, you can remember one of the big worries people were telling us about the new rules was that the minnows, the weaker counties, were going to get awful hammerings. And guess what has happened after 2 weekends so far? The games between the minnows and the strong counties have been very, very competitive for long spells. Yes, at the end of the day, the strength and conditioning and the fitness and the strong counties with the bigger panels, that makes the difference in the end. But for 50, 55 minutes of most games, teams have been very competitive. Antrim were very competitive. New York were very competitive. Sligo rattled Mayo. And again, last no different. Wicklow were very, very competitive. Wicklow were very competitive for long spells against Dublin. Would I worry a lot about it? I was surprised with the performance, but of course, whispered quietly. First of all, okay, there is not a big gap between the top counties and the minnows anymore. There is no top county there anymore because there is no invincible team like the Dublin 6 in a row team or whatever like that. The standard of the top counties has most definitely slipped. The standard in the weaker counties is improving. The gap is closing ever so slightly. But yes, I was disappointed with. You look at with Dublin's performance, they have just come back from a week's training in Portugal. You would have expected that they'd really been sharp. I look at their forward line and you say, geez, there's Niall Scully, there's Con, there's Kilkenny, there's Bugler.
Pascal.
And there's Pascal, there's Paddy Small. Gee, that's a scene. Brian Howard in midfield, Patrick Coffick Burton. And I was surprised that they were so poor and so flat. Again, 2-pointers. Like, I think, was it only 1 2-pointer from playing? That was an injury time from Con. It was certainly a very, very poor performance. But let's be realistic. This is a pale shadow of former great teams. Are we comparing them with the 6 in a row? If we are, it's unfair because these boys have slipped in standards. So a poor performance, but look, they never look like losing it. They never look like losing. Wicklow were brave and heroic, but they were still beaten by 11 points. And this is the ideal scenario for a manager. A win, a handy win, but a lot of things to work on.
Dick, does it give Meath a bit of hope? It's gas because at half time Meath were in big trouble against Offaly, even having played against the Breeze in the first half, but they turned it around spectacularly. They were down 15-5 at half time, finished up 125-21, and probably the team that exploited the 2-pointer most. Robbie Brennan would have been dealing with a lot of questions afterwards about his backroom team, etc. He doesn't really have to deal with them now. He's just looking forward to the Dubs. Does this give them, a glimmer of hope, or more than a glimmer of hope, going into that semi-final?
Potentially, to be honest, Mike, I've lost count of the amount of Dublin Meath games over the last decade that you've previewed, and you've tried to make a case for Meath putting it up to them, that there was something, Meath were showing something in the league and the run up or the previous games, where you're looking for some sort of dints in Dublin's armour. I think it's nothing to do with Meath, because Meath are, let's be honest, despite getting out of jail at the weekend, they're no better or worse than they have been over the last 10 years in terms of a team, and the results bear that out. I think, as I've consistently said this year, and it'll be no different as the season goes, Dublin can't turn up in third gear and expect to blow any team away anymore. Like, they used to win those games against Wicklow and the Meads. They're just so much talent, they couldn't but win it by, double-digit scores by half-time. They can't do that anymore. They're just not good enough players. And the rules then make it a wee bit more of an even playing field as well. They don't have Cluxton in goal as well. They didn't have it the weekend, and you show that again in terms of the efficiency and the accuracy of kickouts that they always give. So that brings them back into the pack. So Dublin turn up in third gear again. I think, is it Tullamore it's fixed for, Mike, your home country?
That one's in Portlaoise, I think.
Portlaoise. Yeah, so if they turn up same flat attitude, I don't expect them, because generally a team, you do get a bounce after a flat performance, and Farrell will look for that. So I'm expecting a better Dublin. Can Meath gain a bit of confidence and momentum that they've just struggled to get anything over the last number of months? That should be a good Meath dressing room and a good Meath training squad over the next couple of weeks. So if there's anything in Meath, they should be going down there with the bit between their teeth and have a cut at them, like all the other teams that we've talked about at the weekend did, and see how far it gets them. Will they beat them? I don't think so. I think there is a big gap between Meath and a good Dublin. I'm expecting a good Dublin, and on that basis, I can see a 10-point win for Dublin. But bring it down the straight. 10 points isn't a big lead anymore. Like, a lot of the games, we know ourselves watching it, when there's only sort of 6 or 7 points in, you're sort of saying now, that can be pulled in fairly quickly. So that's where they need to get them to the 60-minute mark with a single-digit difference between them, and see how far they get them, because I think Dublin are there to be beaten. That's the thing. But you got to get them to the last few minutes within touching distance, and are Meath good enough to do it? I don't think they are, but here I'd be happy to be proved wrong.
Pat, switching tack completely, what's your knowledge of Hyrox?
Oh, jeez.
It's hot and sexy, and if you're not doing Hyrox at the moment, you're out of the loop. It's their latest trend. Like, in fairness,
my wife's trying to get me into it, Mike. I'm resisting it all.
But as somebody who was involved in sport all my life, as somebody who spent 30 plus years as a PE teacher, yes, I anything that involves people getting interested in their fitness and their health and involved in sport, absolutely brilliant. But do you know the way things are going now? This is the trend at the moment. This is a makey up thing. It's a bit like whether it is the triathlons or the Ironmans. Like, it's a big commercial money-making racket, all these gimmicks. So if I tomorrow morning started the Beast of Timpernoe triathlon, a 600-mile run, a 500-mile backward
in your
run,
bare feet,
and you'll get low water, because you'll get a couple of thousand that'll pay €50 a pop. So if I have a makey up sport that involves an egg and spoon race, 10 kilometers up a mountain, 200 press-ups after, followed by a 600k cycle, followed by pushing a wheelbarrow of cement, it's fair play to them, but it'll be a fad, and next year we'll have another gimmick.
Pat, I tell you something.
You've crushed Mike. He's on it. He's trying to Kool-Aid. You've just crushed him.
No, not at all. But the Beast of Temple sounds like great crack. To be fair, the reason
I'm in.
Yeah,
back to Hyrox. I'm heading for Temple.
Yeah,
I'll tell you this. Because I live on the Ring of Kerry, so I swear to God, in the sea for 6 months. Every Saturday, there's an ultra marathon, Geez, I meet the lads that do the 24-hour walk around the Kerry Way, and you start to say, they're lying, some of them are lying unconscious back west of the house. Some of them have doctors attending them. Some of them are just in a state, you start to say, and they still have to go to Kildare. And it's bonkers, but look, different strokes for different folks, whatever floats your boat. But some of the sports and some of the sporting events, I just have a thing about sport that at some stage, sport should and leisure time activity should be age specific. There comes a time where somebody up there in your head should be shouting to your body saying, not able for this shite, this is a bit too severe. Let's go for a nice long walk and breathe in the fresh country air instead of having to do a 600-mile cycle and then followed by a 200-mile run.
Now, that was a long segue, but the reason why I asked about the Hyrox was
Luke Loughlin compete.
Luke Loughlin kicked 11 points for Westmeath on Saturday night, and then he won the Hyrox in Meath with another fella on Sunday. Now, I honestly, he's a fit bio, because after playing a championship game, he'd be broke up normally for a couple of days. He took the bad feeling and how miserable he was after the championship game. He only signed up, I think he signed up at midnight on Saturday night, and then he went and won it on Sunday or whatever. And it's a fair out achievement. Just on that Kildare Westmeath game, Pat, it was an important result for Kildare. By Jez, it was far from pretty at times, and even it was just a kind of an ignorant ball into the square that got their goal before half time.
I would disagree with you, Michael. I enjoyed that game. I really enjoyed that game. Westmeath played some superb football in the first half. Totally dominated midfield. Ray Connellan was magnificent. Luke Loughlin was unmarkable. The gas part about it, I think they left Mark Dempsey on him for most of the game, 50 minutes anyway, without making a change. And then, of course, and Kildare were up to their old failings. They had a forward line with no penetration. They were just doing, it was like ringer, Rosie, round and round the circle, past the parcel, no penetration, no nothing. And then in the 36th minute, just after half time, Ray Connellan got injured, went off, and Kevin Feely then proceeded to give an exhibition of centre field play and high fielding in the second half. Kildare in the second half played with more high tempo. They went direct far more. And, we normally slag off Kildare about no spirit and no attitude. There were 4 points down with 25 minutes to go, and they outscored Westmeath 1-5 to 2 points in the last. So there was a lot. I enjoyed the game anyway. That was the bottom line. I really enjoyed the game.
And you know what, Dick? It's an important win for them, because they were on home side. It was the first championship game in Newbridge, Leinster championship game in Newbridge for some time, and it was important to get a win. And now they have a shot at Louth, who beat them obviously in last year's semi-final, and it's also got massive Tailteann Cup ramifications as well, because the loser goes into the Tailteann Cup and the winner goes into the All-Ireland stages. So it was a big win, Dick, for Kildare.
Massively. I was in Central Parks the weekend and watched that. My brother-in-law through marriage, actually Joe Fallon, if you remember, he would have played with Westmeath.
Oh, lovely player, yeah.
In Paddy's time, and we were watching it together through the phone, and we the golf on the big screen, and he's an Athlone man, Joe, and he was big fan of Ray Connellan, and he was very gutted when he went off, and as Pat said, was a huge loss to Westmeath down the home straight, because like any sort of middle-ranked team, you need your best players on your big days, and you can just sort of see that cost them. So listen, Westmeath have been desperately unlucky. There's no point in saying otherwise. Like, they competed really well in Division 2, and they competed really well for long parts on Saturday night. At the same time, I think with the week that preceded, and with all the sort of memories around Micko and Kildare football, you wonder, did Kildare get a bit of energy from that and sort of say, you know what, lads, we're better than what we have been. And we sort of, there was a time in our recent history that we brought teams here and we played with a bit of pride and played a big, and they got a wee bit of that. And it was good to see. I fondness for Kildare. I've done a lot of work around it, and I know a lot of good people in Kildare football. So they need that. They need that lift. They're a county like me that has the resources and a bit of a tradition there to compete and make Leinster competitive again. So it'll make it for a great semi-final, and whoever comes out of that to potentially face Dublin will make for a good final. So I think unlucky Westmeath, I think they just didn't have enough in the tank to get over the line. But listen, a shot in the arm for Kildare isn't a bad thing either.
Pat, from a Louth point of view, they've had plenty of injuries throughout Division 2, managed to maintain their status. Plenty of injuries coming into that game against Laois at the weekend. They managed to get Craig Lennon, Tommy Dern and Conor Grimes back in the pitch. Sam Mulroy maybe has a shot at appearing in that semi-final against Kildare in Tullamore. But they're kind of like, they've progressed a lot to be able to win games like that, because they wouldn't have probably won games like that a few years ago. Ryan Burns has stepped up. Other faces seem to step up in the absence of some of their bigger names.
Just shaking there. Is Dick an ambassador for Centre Park? He's got 2 plugs into them so far. If he gets another,
well, I'll tell you something.
Shares you wanted it, Pat.
About
you left behind.
I'll tell you something, Pat. He's an ongoing battle with John Milan, because he mentions it 5 or 6 times anytime he's on the show.
If he gets a third plug in, he's going to have a big discount for the next week. I was in Tyrone for the weekend. Sadly, I can't afford to go to those luxurious Midland venues. But Louth, yeah, look, Louth last year under Ger Brennan built on the progress they made under Mickey Hart. They're a serious outfit. They're a formidable outfit. And yes, I see Sam Mulroy did a on the pitch before the game. He did a running session as well. So he must be close to being fit. And it was like Laois put it up to them. And like, remember, Laois were operating in Division 3, Louth are Division 2 teams, and Laois put it up to them. But here's my other rant. This is the crazy thing, because you just mentioned it there. The losers of Louth or Kildare will be playing in the Tailteann Cup. And you'll start to say, this is a joke. The Tailteann Cup was brought in for weaker counties. The Tailteann Cup will now have the first winners of the competition, Westmeath, back into it for this year. Offaly, who will be operating in Division 2, Louth or Kildare will be in Tailteann Cup. And you'll start to say, hey, the Tailteann Cup was for weaker counties. Tailteann Cup should be for Division 4 counties and the bottom half of Division 3 counties, because that's the way they'll improve. What I'm suggesting is, we have 5 tiers in the hurling championship. I honestly believe there's a need for a third tier in Gaelic football for the Kildares, the Westmeath, because Tailteann Cup, for the rest of its life, it stays in the same format. The winners will come out of Division 2. The winners will be a team who either have been promoted to Division 2 or have been relegated in Division 2. So you look at the last 3 winners, the first 3 winners, Westmeath, Meath, and last year Down. Are they really weaker counties? No, they're not. And then you could have Westmeath winning again, or Louth perhaps winning it, or Kildare winning it.
It's all based on a provincial draw, Pat, basically, as well. Like, because Tipper Clare are going to play this weekend, and the winner's going to be in the All-Ireland series, and the loser goes into the Tailteann. It'll probably be, you know what I mean? Like, it's very, very distorted, in fairness. Lads, we just have a quick one. This is probably the biggest weekend of football coming up. Just fly through 3 games that would really take my fancy anyway. And I'll start with you, Dick. Monaghan welcoming Donegal to Clonus. Like, that's really like, okay, we've got through a couple of weeks of championship action. Hasn't been too much happening. No big surprises. This is a big game to get the juices flowing.
Yeah, big game. Everyone's hugely looking forward to it. Probably the start of the season, you'd have been a bit apprehensive. Weren't too sure where Monaghan would be with retirements and, you know, thin and panel and all the rest. And obviously they come out of the league with a lot of confidence. Now, caveat that with it was Division 2 and you're never too sure where you're at against the big boys, but we're going to find out on Sunday. I think at the end of the day, historically, Monaghan have always had a very good record against Donegal, going back before my time, during my time. So they will not fear a Jim McGuinness team, unlike other teams, which they do. Monaghan don't. And there will be no inhibitions in Clonus from Monaghan players or supporters alike, and that matters. You know, there were teams. Tyrone were a team that always had a bit of a hoodoo over us, and whereas Donegal wasn't. So that matters, and the Monaghan boys are going out. Some of them are going out with confidence that have beaten Donegal players, you know, on more than one occasion. Donegal, I think, won't, and Jim McGuinness will know that. And he will be coming with his best foot forward. It'll not be like Dublin going down to Wicklow or Armagh going up to Cork Park. They'll be going down to Clonus fully prepped with his best foot forward. He'll not be resting any players. He'll not be playing boys that aren't fully fit, because he'll know they'll need to be on their guard unless, and it would be an upset because Donegal are rightly going in as favourites to have enough credit in the bank in terms of their performances to date and their showing against Derry in the first round. So they're the team to beat, and if Monaghan have a chance to beat them, they have to, you know, put their best forward for it. But I'm confident that they will compete and will compete very, very well. So I won't be one bit surprised. I'm not just saying this as a biased Monaghan supporter, based on what I've seen from Monaghan and their goal scoring threat, and with Rory Beggan, they're going out on the pitch with a 3 or 4 point advantage because what he brings. I know Pat doesn't like the 2 point free kicks, but it's the reason that Monaghan are competing so well, because Rory Beggan gobbles them up with a range that no other player has. So I'm expecting a really, really big. There's going to be a big crowd in Clonus. I'm expecting 15,000 plus there, and it probably will be the first real proper championship game of the summer.
What do you reckon, Pat? And you might just go on to a little word on Cork and Kerry then after, but what do you make of Monaghan and Donegal? It's a good test for Donegal.
Oh, geez, I can't see anything but a Donegal victory. Sorry about that, Dick. I can't see. So I'm not bitten about it. Okay, Monaghan surprised me in Division 2. I didn't think that you expected, without Conor McManus, okay, they'd struggle in the scoring stakes and all that. And they haven't. They're the highest scoring team in the country, and they got promoted. Yes, I would admit I got that wrong. Donegal are one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the country. And Jimmy McGuinness will leave no stone unturned. There'll be no, like Dick said, there'll be no complacency. There'll be no playing injured players. I just think Donegal are going to be there or thereabouts come the end of July. Will Monaghan be there or thereabouts? No, I don't think so. But they've really done well this year. But not. It's a bridge too far to beat Donegal.
Now, that, Pat, in 2013, right? And this is what we sort of battle with all the time, right? You just said the exact same thing before the Ulster final times 10 in 2013. Donegal were All-Ireland champions, hadn't been beaten in the Ulster Championship in 2.5 years, had wiped the floor with the Kerrys, the Corks, the Mayos, everybody the previous year, the unbeatable team. And we brought them to Clonus in the 2013 championship, and we wiped the floor with them, double digits. So it's the exact same narrative going in, and that's sort of the Monaghan psyche that we know we can beat Donegal when we're raging underdogs. That doesn't faze us, but so we let everybody else from the outside looking in to write us off, because we've overcome those odds comfortably in the past.
Well, if I was you, I'd be putting my shirts on a Monaghan victory this weekend, but you won't be going to Central Park with any winnings.
He'll be going shirtless. Now,
me and Mike have a good record in the old bookies. I tell you, back Rory on Thursday night after his
nice
show on Thursday at 12-1. You all right, Mike?
Yeah. You know, actually, Michael, because
I'm doing okay on that front, so I might have a wee quiet wager, Pat.
It is a huge weekend. I mean, this is a mega weekend in a way. Like you said, it's we're back to the split season. It's feast or famine. We go for 6 months where there'll be no intercounty action, and in the third weekend we have mega hurling weekend, and we have a mega football weekend. And I think something is lost. I look at Kerry Cork. I can tell you this. I mean, I was privileged to play in the 70s and 80s in the heyday of the Kerry Cork clashes. Okay, it was a Munster final. It was in July with 40,000, 35,000 on many, many occasions. Next Saturday evening, you'll be lucky to get 10,000. There is absolutely no one talking about it. There is absolutely no interest. Cork have struggled enough in the league. Kerry, after Division 1, are probably one of the championship favourites. I can't see anything but a Kerry victory, but we won't learn anything for another couple of weeks. But it's a shame, you know. I've always made this right. If the split season is in, I've made this suggestion several times. If you really want to maximise exposure to GAA, particularly high-profile games, yes, you can have a split season, but why not split the intercounty football and hurling season and have the 1 year the intercounty football season the first 6 months, and the second year the intercounty season the second 6 months, and switch with the hurling, and vice versa,
so that we have a captive audience for the whole year?
Absolutely, that you maximise the profile of the GAA, maximise its revenue, and let's showcase our star intercounty hurlers and footballers. And with the club, you can still do that with the club. You can have club football the first 6 months, club hurling the second 6 months, and twist them over the second year.
I was going to ask you what you do with dual players, but that's obviously the answer to it.
Not exactly, they're not exactly 2 a penny or 10 a penny around the place.
Now there were 3 Cork ladies that played football on Saturday. Division 2 won a league, and they played Camogie on Sunday, in fairness. But yeah, they are definitely a dying species. The last game, I'll just get a quick word from the two of you on Roscommon and Galway. Now that is I would say, along with Monaghan and Donegal, that's a little more difficult to call. What do you reckon of there, Pat? Roscommon are going to have to be a hell of a lot better than they were towards the tail end of the league.
Yeah, I would have, if I was a gambling man, I would have put Roscommon to just be certainties to walk promotion out of Division 2. And as you can see, they spluttered over the line and were very, very poor. Yes, they have as good a forward line as you'll get. They have as good a 2-point shooters as you'll find anywhere with any team, with the Murtas and the Smiths and Craig and excellent forwards. If there's a question mark on Roscommon, it'll be their defence. I'm not too sure whether Brian Stack will be available.
He's had enough time now, because it wasn't a serious injury and he'd been back doing it. Like, to me, Pat, I'd agree with you. I think forget about the forwards. I think he's their most important player, genuinely now.
Absolutely. So their Achilles, Roscommon's Achilles heel is their defence. Galway's strength, if Comer and Shane Walsh are flying fit, well, then they have a serious forward line. Look, this is probably Pádraig Joyce's last shot. If he doesn't deliver the All-Ireland, I can see Pádraig leaving. It's a big year. When it comes to Galway, Roscommon, Galway Mayo, Forum tends to go out the window. It's on the day. But even though I thought Galway have been disappointing in the last couple of matches I watched, particularly without Shane Walsh, that forward line is not the blue chip forward line you'd expect. But I think under the new rules, Galway are one of those teams like Donegal, probably like Kerry. They have the athleticism, they have the physicality, and they have the shooters from outside.
Dick, final word on that game?
Yeah, I think I was disappointed with Roscommon in the league final against Monaghan. I thought the pace of the Monaghan attack cut through them. I think Galway bring a different proposition. They're a bit of a bigger team, not just necessarily as nippy or as agile. I think Roscommon have always competed quite well with that and won't fear the Galway attack. I think I would agree with Pat. I think there has to be something in Galway, and this is a game that they have to sort of show their teeth, because they've got a season there that there's an All-Ireland there sitting for them to go. Yeah. They have the scars, they have the talent, they have the depth in the panel. Is Cook back? Was word he was coming back?
He's back.
Back in the panel.
Yes.
You know, the cards are lining up for them, and they have to start putting in big performances. They need to get the likes of Comer. Like, we can't be talking about the potential of Comer. We need to see it on the pitch consistently, and that's got to start happening against good teams like Roscommon are. So I'm expecting a Galway win. Wouldn't put a penny on it, to be honest with you. I think that the odds there, I'm just looking at it, they're 4-1 on. I'm not sure where they're pulling those odds. I think it'll be a tighter game than that.
Oh yeah.
I don't think Galway can be trusted to be that comfortable to win. But as I say, what I'd be looking at Sunday's this game is, are Galway really, really contenders? I think if you look at Donegal, if Pat's putting Donegal and Galway on a similar pedestal, which they should be as All-Ireland contenders, you'll know an awful lot about both teams come Sunday evening in terms of how they've dealt with the two underdog challengers in Monaghan and Roscommon.
Great stuff, men, and we'll be back next Tuesday to digest it all. Thanks a million for your time, folks, and we'll see you again next week.